Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday, June 15th, 2017, and we're at episode number 63 of the Beyond the Ring with Big T Wrestling podcast. And boy, guys, I got a special treat for all of you tonight, and I love doing this. The superstar interviews, the wrestler interviews is my favorite part of this podcast. It's brings me the most joy in what I love to do here, and I'm very pleased to introduce our next guest. We have professional wrestler Chris Silvio with us tonight. How you doing, Chris?
It is I, Chris Superstar Silvio. I'm doing fantastic. What's going on, Big T? What's good with you, bud?
Hey, everything is going fantastic. I am honored to have you here tonight, and I'm ready to start talking about your life and times in pro wrestling, man.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. And man, I could write 3 books on the life and times of Chris Silvio, but we'll keep it brief for the entertainment of the listening audience out there. But fire away, man. I'm ready. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, you're welcome, and thank you for accepting the invitation to come on the show tonight. And let's get started with the first question here. Now, if you can remember approximately when and how old you were, when did you first discover pro wrestling, like either on your TV or going to see a live show, and when did the inspiration strike you? When you said to yourself, this is it. This is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I want to become a professional wrestler.
Man, to be honest, I barely remember what I did yesterday. No, I'm just kidding. I was born to do this, man. Anybody that's ever heard me on previous interviews or on my own show, the Chris Silvio Show, now available on iTunes and Google Play. Cheap plug. Anybody that's ever heard any of my interviews, man, I was just born to wrestle. There's never been a point in time where wrestling hasn't been a huge part of my life. I grew up with older brothers. In the 80s boom with the Rock and Wrestling Connection, and I actually, I've come up with each WrestleMania. So I had older brothers that always watched, they watched everything. They watched WWF, they watched AWA, WCW. So growing up, I just kind of watched what they were watching. I inherited their wrestling toys. Like, these were my first toys. I didn't really play with baby toys as a kid. I played with LJN figures. So yeah, it's just always been a part of my life. And then having them, they were reading the magazines and stuff like that. So the guys that, I didn't get the television show where I live, they tell me about the AWA guys and the Crockett guys and stuff like that. So there was really no defining point where I just discovered it and said, oh, this is magical. It's always been a huge part of my life. I think as far as like maybe me getting into it, I had an odd dream when I was, I want to say 12 or 13. I don't know if I've talked about this on the show before, so this might be a podcast exclusive here. I had an odd dream, I think about 12 or 13, where I was in a tag match against the Steiner brothers with Sting. And I don't really remember what happened. I think Sting and I kicked some ass. And then I remember waking up from that dream and being like, I think I'm going to be a wrestler when I get older. And it was true. I did.
Wow. That's a pretty cool dream to have, too,
Yeah, what a match, too, right? Teaming up with Sting against the Steiners when all 3 of them are in their prime, and I'm a skinny 12-year-old kid. Like, hey, good match.
Definitely. You know what? Hey, if I had that dream as a kid, pump me up to do the same thing you did.
Yeah, man.
I gotta tell you, so you're 12 years old, you have this awesome dream that you're just kicking some ass with Sting. And this prompts you, this lights that fire. Now, once that fire gets lit, how much time went by, and what did it take for you to take those first steps to the promised land, to becoming a wrestler, to go into training and start doing what you were meant to do?
There's actually a little bit more to that Sting story. It's pretty interesting. So
okay,
I would I would have been about seventh grade, I imagine, when this happened. And I had a couple of years. My father was in the Army, so I lived most of my life in Richmond, Virginia. But there was a period where he got stationed overseas in Puerto Rico. And people that know me know that I'm of Puerto Rican descent. So it was kind of cool getting to see, some of my culture and family I had met before. But anyway, I remember that was the first time in a long time that I had to go to like a new school and meet new kids and stuff like that. So I remember wrestling was really starting to boom. And I met a few kids that liked wrestling. Well, it turned out that some of them would go out like during the lunch period and like shoot wrestle with each other, but would try to hit, would try to hit like, DDTs and whatever wrestling moves they saw on TV, but they were really grappling. And I remember I was a new kid. It was like my first week of school. And I had some amateur wrestling experience previously to moving up there. And there was a bunch of kids like wrestling around. And there was this eighth grader. I remember we became friends later, but he's a big dude, big at the time at least. And he was whooping everybody's butt and nobody wanted to wrestle. And I knew I had some wrestling experience and I had older brothers. So I was like, oh, I'll take him. So like no one knew who I was. And I came up and anyway, I had a match with this guy and, got the better of him, was kind of, tossed him around a little bit on the schoolyard. And I remember like a lot of the kids coming up to me after. And I left with this cute Puerto Rican girl in my arm. It was almost like an episode of Raw, a really cheesy episode of Raw. But yeah, so that was one of my earliest wrestling tales. And then, we would do our own little shows in the schoolyard at lunch until that got broken up. But as far as the journey, man, I did amateur wrestling. I couldn't get in the ring when I was a kid, so the next best thing was amateur wrestling. And, I was really happy to do that. I got to travel every weekend. It was kind of like being a pro wrestler in a way. Every weekend I was traveling somewhere else to some tournament, dragging my poor mom across the country, as far as Fargo, North Dakota, to wrestle in the Fargo Dome for junior nationals. So that was a really cool event. Just dragging my mom all over the place to these matches. And as soon I think I was right about 17, I found out about a wrestling school in the area called VCW. And I would just go, it might have even been 16, and I would go and help them set up the ring, go watch their shows, and then, a couple guys were nice enough before the show started, once we set up the ring, to show us a few things. I would, hop in and try to learn whatever I can, and that was around the time, too, where backyard wrestling was popular, so me and my buddies kind of organized a backyard group in Richmond that once we got trained later turned into one of the biggest promotions in the history of Richmond, called Richmond Lucha Libre. But yeah, I jumped on when I was about 17, started training, went to do a couple wrestling schools and started working matches, and I was off and running, man.
Hey, it's interesting that you bring up the backyard wrestling story because it got me thinking of what I did with my buddies a few years back. We started our own backyard wrestling thing, just doing it up in a local park, once a week. And I was the Vince McMahon of the whole thing. I had to be the chairman. I had to be the boss,
It's fun, man. As long as, it's a real great creative outlet. And all the times that we did it, I don't really think anyone ever got not seriously injured, but I don't think anyone got injured at all. It's a good creative outlet if you're being safe and, you're not doing anything insane. I do see some stuff I'll come across online, where some kids in the backyard are just doing some ridiculous things. You got to have some kind of sense to you. Obviously you don't want to jump off of your roof and land on your back or something ridiculous like that. But
exactly.
If you're being safe, it's a good creative outlet until you're old enough to pursue something else.
Yeah, just something fun to do, with your friends that love wrestling, and you all love wrestling, so you come together as a group collectively and have some fun. But yeah, I never really got or understood, the kids that had to take it to a whole other level where, they literally had to jump off their roof, like you said, or hit each other with glass. It's like, come on, you don't need to go that far.
Different strokes, my man.
But hey, it sounds like the way you did it is kind of like the way we did it, and I definitely I agree with the way all that goes, because that's fun stuff.
Yeah, man, for sure.
You go through, you do backyard wrestling. You're starting to learn a little bit. You're having this creative outlook. You're having a little fun. So does this start lighting your fire more? Well, not only that, but just the competitions you're going to for amateur wrestling and stuff like that. All the competitions that you've gone to that you mentioned. Is this really lighting your fire now to get in gear? Like, okay, when I'm old enough, I'm training for pro wrestling. I'm doing it.
Yeah, I started training when I was still in school, and my parents and my coaches, they all wanted me to, go and wrestle in college. I think I ended up wrestling, maybe one semester at the collegiate level, but everybody wanted me to wrestle in college, and I just done it for so long. I did it since I was 11 years old. So, I've had to cut a lot of weight. And just spend, because I wrestled year round when I was in school. It wasn't like baseball or football, whatever sport where you wrestle, where you play a few months and then you go on about your life. I was training in tournaments all the time, so I hardly ever had a break from wrestling. And I always knew that I just wanted to do pro wrestling, so it kind of took a little bit of time to convince everyone else. But I had an odd start too, because around 18 is when me and several buddies and a good friend of mine who wrestles as Paradise, who's now one of the producers at Impact Wrestling, we started a promotion in Richmond called Richmond Lucha Libre that became like an underground sensation. We ran out of nightclubs and bars, had some really, really cool shows. It was almost like ECW meets Chikara type of vibe, and we were drawing, some of the biggest independent crowds I've seen to this day.
Wow.
So at a real young age, I was actually helping to run my own promotion, and there were guys, we needed to bring in new talent, so I would kind of show a lot of those people the ropes in the ring, passing on what I'd picked up in my brief time in the business. So I kind of went a little, started a little bit backwards in the sense that I started, for the most part, on the promotions end. But I think that really kind of helped me, because at an early age, I understood how to promote not only a show, but other people and myself. So I kind of got a good idea of how to conduct business. And then, from there, I just started taking bookings as many places as I can. And at about 23, I believe, I knew I wanted more. I'd already done all the stuff I could, in that area. I wrestled around Virginia and the Carolinas. I pretty much had gone as far as I could go there, so it was time to move on. That's when WWE was at Ohio Valley Wrestling. So that was the next logical step for me. I got accepted into the training program there, and up and moved to Kentucky and started training with Rip Rogers. And I spent off and on. I trained with Rip for about 9 years. He's just such a good guy to pick up knowledge from. I learned so much from him about where to place things. I never had any problem like learning the moves or technique, and thankfully I've been blessed with pretty good genes, and athletic ability. So I never had a problem doing the physical end of wrestling. But the hardest thing to get as a performer is understanding, why you do things and the right time to do things. So that's something that Rick really helped me out with. And just kind of coming from my amateur background, I'm used to training all the time and practicing. So I'm one of the rare wrestlers that still practices and trains, on mats or in the ring on a regular basis. So that's why I spent so much time with Rip, even after I'd been appearing on TV shows and been on national TV, but I was still training with Rip. Spend the weekend, wrestling up to 10 matches a weekend just in the training school alone, just up in my game. Yeah, OVW is the next step, man. I had a lot of real good times there.
And that's the right way to go about it. Even if you're doing a lot of stuff, just keep going back and get more training. Even if you know what you're doing, just keep going there and just get seasoned, man. You have the right outlook there.
Well, nobody knows everything. The moment that, and if there are any people that are thinking of getting in the business, or anybody that's wrestling that is listening to this, once you kind of think that you have nothing left to learn, you're just shutting the door for yourself, and you're closing yourself out from so many opportunities and learning experiences. I've been studying wrestling as long as I've been alive, and I still got so much to learn. I learn something new every day. Every match, I learn something new. A lot of the greatest trainers in the world will tell you that they get to where they are just by learning something, something new every day, every week. So I really stand by that philosophy that you should always be trying to improve, and not just in a wrestling sense, but in a worldly sense, better yourself as a person, better yourself as a businessman, a family man, whatever it is you have in your life. We're a constant work in progress.
Yeah, it's with wrestling, it's that the competitive sport, that pure art form that it never gets old. There's always something new to pick up along the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Always, and it's just it's great. I love it. I love everything about it, and just hearing you go through these steps and going through what you went through, going on this journey. I'll tell you, it's a very nice thing to hear. How you can start your own sensation, like your own underground sensation type of wrestling organization, and just teach yourself things, and then go to Ohio Valley. And now, when you were in Ohio Valley, was WWE was still this was before NXT?
Yeah, it was when developmental was in Louisville at OVW. So, and that was quite an intimidating thing to walk into, because I'd come off of the independence, where we would really, at that time, it was around 2007. Independents weren't as established as they are today, and there wasn't that many indie stars. Like, you had a few guys that were known on the independents, but most of the quote unquote stars would be some of the old timers that had done some things in WWF or WCW. And occasionally you'd run into some ECW guys as well, but it wasn't that far removed from when ECW was running. So it was a lot different coming into OVW, where I was, running into people that are actively on television on a regular basis, and bigger stars. And it was really my first taste into the politics of wrestling, because at that time on the independent scene, you didn't run into that politics that much. And running my own promotion, I never really had to think about too much of that kind of thing. But it was a huge learning experience, and took some getting used to, because you just had to worry about making sure that you said everything right to the right person, and little details could get you in trouble for something stupid. You didn't even realize you were doing something wrong, but somebody doesn't like it. So I kind of learned, all right, in this game, the higher you get, you really gotta watch how you behave. And I learned a lot in my early stages there about how to conduct myself as a professional. And it really was like, wrestling was just, I don't want to say all fun and games, but it was pretty much all fun and games prior to that. So getting in, I really had to start thinking business. And all the guys I were working with, were talking about what they could do to land jobs and get signed and things like that. And, the guys in the independents were, happy if they got $50. So it was a completely different mindset over there. And these guys were gigantic, bro. Like, I was a lot smaller when I got in. I've been weight training now for about 12 years, but it was early on, in my weightlifting career. And I wasn't very big when I got there, so it was super intimidating and that was when WWE was hiring a lot of monsters. You had guys well over 6 feet, well over 200 pounds. In today's wrestling scene, I'm an average size competitor. But then I was unequivocally one of the smaller guys. So that was kind of intimidating, getting in there with those guys. But I just jumped in both feet, man. I wanted to show what I could do. And, thankfully I opened some doors for myself and worked my ass off. And it's been a pretty good road.
And I got to say, back in the day, and I know exactly what you're talking about with WWE, man, pulling in some monsters, and that they did. And I got to tell you, the way the business has evolved, it's like I actually prefer the the smaller to average sized guys rather than the big monsters, because you can see some of the best matches. I mean, look at guys like Daniel Bryan and guys that have just lit the wrestling scene on fire. CM Punk back in 2011. I mean, that size I noticed, and even my all time favorite is Y2J Chris Jericho.
Yes.
Guys that size, they just for me, it was always a more entertaining match style for me to see guys those size go up against the big giant guy, or just two guys those size tear each other apart. And they could be the whole package. They could fly around the ring, they could be technical, they can brawl. They pretty much do it all.
Yeah. And yet, like today's landscape is changed in the sense that it is a faster, more agile style. Like we were saying earlier, you're not seeing as many giants or monsters, like we call them. You're seeing a bit smaller, faster guys that can do a lot more. So I think, just as an overall product, for the viewer, it is a bit more entertaining, and it keeps your attention. It's kind of twofold though, because from a marketing standpoint, you can always market attractions and look at this guy. This is the bit. Like, think about how great of an attraction Andre the Giant was. They took him to every single territory the Giants come in, and he would do great business for everyone. It was a sight to see this guy. Because, the wrestling landscape used to be more of attraction. They wanted somebody that looked big and menacing that you could point to on the street and say, that guy will kick your ass. So I think wrestling's kind of lost that in a sense, and it's went in favor for athleticism, which works really well for guys like myself, because I'm never going to be 6'10" and 300 pounds.
Yeah, and wrestling, it's back in the day, exactly like you said, you'd have these guys that people would think legitimately kick their ass, but I love the entertainment aspect, and guys like yourself, and just some of these guys too have had the best characters too as well. The best character development, like Daniel Bryan's ultimate underdog character. CM
Jericho.
Yeah, Jericho's character, how he could reinvent himself. He could go from face to heel, and just flip himself back and forth, and have the crowd loving him or hating it at any given moment. And it's just an outstanding art form, to see how they do this to entertain the crowd. And I'm just thinking about with you down in Ohio Valley Wrestling, and it struck my mind, with you being down there with Rip Rogers training you, and when you were down in Ohio Valley, do you have some standout feuds and matches that you would like to speak of for us?
Yeah, you'll hear Rip talk about this on many of his podcasts. One of my greatest accomplishments while I was training over there and part of the developmental system they had in place, I had an hour-long babyface tag match. It was a 60-minute match that ended in a time limit draw. And it was a challenge that Rip gave myself and my partner Paradise versus the Mobile Homers, who later wrestled as the Elite, Ted McNair and Adam Revolver. And he challenged us to do a 60-minute match where both teams are babyfaces, because he'd never seen a time limit draw tag match with babyfaces. And I think we had it in Campbellsville, Kentucky, and we just put on a really, really fantastic back and forth match. And after seeing an hour of wrestling with no villain, the crowd is chanting for 5 more minutes, which was a really cool accomplishment. And he likes to tell that story, so that match will always stand out in my mind. I had a partner, Rafael Constantine, there as well. We did a couple tags together in Ring of Honor until I started doing some singles stuff there. He and I had some killer matches either against each other or against the Elite. I had a really, really fun feud with Cliff Compton I believe in 2012. We had some fun, and we had a big blow-off cage match where Cliff jumped off the top of the OVW cage, which is literally the tallest cage in wrestling. That thing is ungodly big. I don't know how big it is, but it looks around legitimate 18 or 20 feet. It's enormous.
Wow.
And he took a bump from the top of the cage to the mat. So that was terrible. I think I was more afraid than he was, and I'm the flyer. I remember laying on the mat and looking up at him, and he did the Jimmy Snuka pose at the top of the cage, and I was like, oh my God, one of us is going to die. But thankfully, we both lived to tell the tale. So that was a lot of fun. I had some fun matches on house shows with Rockstar Spud. He was always really fun to work with. We had a thing where as a rib one time, I tied his foot to the ring post, and he probably won't appreciate me telling that story, but that was pretty funny. I had a rope hiding under the ring, and he was selling something, and I just ran under real quick and tied his foot to the ring post and beat on him for a minute. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, man, lots of good times there, some good feuds. Just the learning experience there was good for me because, we worked so many matches consistently, and I got to work under Jim Cornette and Al Snow for so long. And they were just good guys to get completely – I think they had kind of opposing views for how to present wrestling. So it was really cool to kind of get, both sides of the coin there and just see different ways that you can do stuff. Like I got a lot of the traditional wrestling stuff from Cornette and got an idea of how to put together great finishes from Cornette. And where, Al Snow, I learned a lot more about entertaining. I think I evolved a lot as an entertainer just working under Al because he always challenged me to, work to bring out my personality. I'd get back from a match and, he really wouldn't critique me as far as like what the motions were or what looked good or what looked bad. He'd just say, you need to do your character more here or there. So to him, it was really about, being as entertaining as possible in the ring. So that really helped me kind of get my legs and determine, who the, superstar Silvio persona really was, and really kind of helped me to put things together. Now I don't even think about it. At this point, man, what I do in the ring is so close to an extension of who I am. Like, I'm not really working a gimmick. Like I am myself. Other than like if I meet you on the street, I won't say hi. I'm Superstar Silvio. That's really about the only change is that I'll say hi. I'm Chris, and that's about it. But just through that kind of stuff, man, I know how to play my role. I understand my product. I understand what I present to the public, and those guys had a big hand in molding that and Rip from a technical end. So yeah, I owe those guys a lot for teaching me along the way.
It's got to feel great, too, to go out and do your dream job, do what you love, and also be yourself, because a lot of people have a character or a role that they have to be in the business, but for you to actually go out there and be yourself, and it works to where, they're just letting you go out there and be yourself, that's got to be a damn good feeling.
Yeah, man. I mean, what you see is what you get. Like, my favorite band since I was a teenager is the Doors. I love that psychedelic music. I love acid rock. I love the Grateful Dead. I wear the Dead Skulls. I the peace symbols, all the hippie connotation. I grew up as a hippie wearing Birkenstocks, going to music festivals. But at the same time, I was a kick-ass amateur wrestler where I would, it was my job to go out there and just outwork and outmuscle people and, be violent and brutal when I needed to. So I have both of those sides of my personality. And when you watch my work, you can kind of see those blend together because I am a very, calm person. I believe in vibrations and good energies, and all those things and treating people well. But, when it's time to get physical, I can turn that switch in a moment's notice. So I think that's one of the things that makes me a interesting and unique performer is that I have a lot of layers and a lot of dimensions. And, essentially, man, I'm myself when I'm out there. What you see is 100% what you get.
That is awesome, and it's funny. It's funny that you talk about your choice in music, like with the Doors, Grateful Dead. I love those bands too. I do.
Man.
My favorite Grateful Dead tune, I could listen to it over and over again, is Terrapin Station.
Yeah. All of the Dead, man.
Even though it's a long song,
Yeah.
it's
Most of those jams are long, man. Like, do you ever listen to the live albums where they just, kind of weave in between songs?
yeah. It's I'll tell you, it's something. So I know, the kind of music that you're listening to is that's some of the best stuff, man. It really is some of the best stuff ever written. And
Yeah, I've got pretty extensive music taste. Like, I really like to listen to everything, and I'm a self-taught musician as well. So I've been playing guitar since I was probably 10 or 11, pretty much as long as I've been wrestling. And so I just have an ear. I like to listen to all styles of music, but that's one of my favorite ones since I was a kid, and I feel like that style really translates well to professional wrestling. Like some of the other stuff I listen to, I don't think would look as good on gear or necessarily translate as well. So that's a lot of reason why I kind of market my image in the way that I do.
and you know, when I think about music and pro wrestling, you know, I don't try to knock anything that's being done right now in today's day and age, but I gotta tell you, like back in the day when WWE would have a pay per view and they would have what was it, WrestleMania 25, when they would have ACDC, shoot to thrill for their theme song. And then you move on to like WrestleMania 32, you got Flow Ride My House. I mean, it's like now WWE, they just want to go with, it seems like they want to go with the stuff that's popular at the moment, that's mainstream. It's like, let's go with it. And the whole thing is, it really doesn't get you pumped. Like when you're in the crowd at WrestleMania and you're hearing Shoot to Thrill go off and the pyro's going off and the fans are going nuts. That's the energy,
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends on the audience too. Because if you think about it, they've always done that. In the '80s, they marketed Cyndi Lauper when she had one of the number one records. Pretty much throughout their entire history, they bring in people that are relevant. They try to keep the celebrities and things that they bring in as contemporary as possible. So I get it from that point. And those are decisions like, man, they have so many departments there. Like, they have people that things like that are their job specifically. So they have an ear to, what's popular right now, what's trendy. So I don't think they look at it more in the terms like you and I might have saying, oh, well, that song's really cool, or that song gets me hype. I think they're just thinking of mass appeal when they do that kind of thing. Because I'm sure not a lot of people sit around listening to that Flow Rider song and get pumped up for the fight, but it's got a lot of cross appeal. So I think that's why they use those type of things.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that for sure. And to get back to you, Chris, I know we spoke of OVW, and you mentioned Ring of Honor. Was your next step after OVW? Was the next step Ring of Honor? What was next for you in your path?
Yeah, man. Well, I based myself out of OVW for just about 9 years. So, I had my first really, really solid singles run there, and had a very lengthy television title run. But during that time, I was working everywhere that I could. I was taking independent bookings all over the country. I was one of the few, OVW guys that really was branching out around that time, and I was just trying to maximize every bit of exposure. But through Cornette's relationship with OVW and Ring of Honor, that's when Cornette was one of the, I can't remember his exact title, but he was a producer or booker for Ring of Honor. So I got some opportunities through him. At the Davis Arena, first I did a couple shows there when ROH would come to town, and I did the job that was asked of me well. I had a good look. I kept in shape. I had a gimmick. So I started traveling on the road with them quite a bit, and I was a regular on the TV program and would do a fair amount of house shows as well. But I had maybe about a year and a half where I worked with them pretty steady. Had some, as OVW turned from working with ROH to the brief stint with as being a developmental for Impact Wrestling. I had a couple opportunities with Impact Wrestling there, and so yeah, I was still based out of OVW, but I was working when I could with these other companies and taking independence as well.
Now, in Ring of Honor, what's been some of your favorite feuds and matches over there in Ring of Honor? Because I've talked, with a few guys that have been in Ring of Honor. Actually, I think probably guys from Ring of Honor have been. Those have been some of my top guests. It seems like I get more of the Ring of Honor guys. Like I had Beer City Bruiser Matt Winchester, Shane Taylor, Shaheem Ali. Last night, Victor Andrews, who had a stint in Ring of Honor, and now you, who had a stint in Ring of Honor. And I always praise Ring of Honor, every time I have a guest on that has worked with Ring of Honor, I always let them know, what, I'm huge into Ring of Honor. They praise themselves in being the best professional wrestling on the planet, which, in a lot of ways they really are, because they'll give you exactly that. They'll give you wrestling, if you're not in the mood for entertainment or comedy or promos or this and that, like if you're just in a mood where you want to kick back and watch nonstop wrestling action, that's Ring of Honor, and they give it to you. And I've heard the same thing from every wrestler, and I just get that. I get this vibe when I talk to people that have wrestled there, and I just get this vibe when, like I've seen guys in the locker room, with each other, just stories that I've heard, that Ring of Honor, their locker room is more like a family than anything else, and not like a business, and it's just such a great atmosphere to be a part of. And everybody always has told me that it was a very special time in their life, and I'm curious how your time in Ring of Honor was for you.
It's been a good 5 years since I've worked with them, so I can't really speak to how the locker room is at the moment. But I do remember having pre-show meetings and things like that, where the direction was given to the talent just to go out and have a good match. A lot of shows, and that might be something that separates Ring of Honor from some other companies, but oftentimes, especially at a television taping, everybody will have kind of designated roles. Some guys have to go out and put a 3-minute match together. Some guys have to go 25-minute matches. And, a lot of times people will, heavily influence what you do in the ring, whether that be the booker or an agent or something like that. But I remember for the most part, Ring of Honor was, especially in the house shows, it was, everybody just go out there and tear it up. So that was a really cool vibe. For me, I would have liked to have done a lot more. I was pretty young, in age when I started working there. And, I never really unfortunately, I never really got to have any memorable feuds or anything like that. I was for lack of a better term, man, I was there to help get other guys over.
Okay.
I got to work with, a lot of really good talent. When they were building Adam Cole, I worked a couple matches with him. Had some good times with him when they were building Jay Lethal to become a world champion. I had a few really good matches with him. Had a couple very good tag matches with my tag team partner, Paradise. We had a really fun match in Charleston, West Virginia with the Briscoe brothers. Had a really good match in my hometown of Richmond, Virginia against a tag team called A1. That was an independent tag team. That was my favorite moment there, because I was in my hometown, and it was a big thing coming back to my hometown, and the news cameras were there to follow it. And we got some time to really work. A lot of my matches there were television matches where, you had anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes, and you can do a lot with 5 to 8 minutes of TV time. But from the performer end, my favorite matches to be in are when I've got 15 minutes or 20, because you can really build a story. You can build to everything and build the drama. So that's really what I like to do. Unfortunately, I only had the opportunity to have one or two really long matches that could tell a drawn out story, and the other ones were just doing what was asked of me to the best of my abilities. And I had a nice little run there, got tons of experience, and then once management changed, Cornette parted ways with them, and he was particularly high on me. So, for whatever reason, when he was out, I didn't really have have too much to do with them. But there's certainly like no hard feelings or anything like that. And recently I've been working with Impact Wrestling, and had some opportunities with NXT as well. But yeah, I mean, at this point in my career where I'm at now, I can certainly see myself going into an environment like Ring of Honor and really excelling. They've got some good talent there right now. At the stage of my career, I've got so much experience, and I can have any style of match for any duration and pretty much work with any guy on the planet. So at this point, I'm super confident. If I end up walking in somewhere like Ring of Honor, I know it'll be really good.
Wow. Now, I'll tell you, Chris, I'm enjoying every minute of your story, and just going through the motions of your career. And I'll tell you, I gotta say, you've had quite the journey. You definitely have had quite the journey, and it sounds like a great one. And what I want to pick up now, I heard you talk about having some opportunities in Impact Wrestling and NXT and things like that. If you would like to speak on those, definitely do that. Was those your next steps after Ring of Honor, or did you go elsewhere, or were those indeed your next steps?
After I wrapped up with Ring of Honor, I based for about 2 years. I based myself for the most part out of OVW, and at the time I was going through some big transitions in my life. I had recently got married. I took on a lot of responsibility with my job I had at the time outside of wrestling. Up until recently, at the moment, I'm a full-time wrestler. I'm traveling, all around the world doing what I love. But there was a time when I couldn't do that. So, I worked in the finance industry, and I started, just like anything else, I worked as hard on that as I did on my wrestling, just because I wanted to be as good. Whatever I'm doing, I want to be good at it, right?
Yep.
So I ended up getting a lot more responsibility, which required me to be at work a lot more often. And I was in charge of running a business in a lot of aspects. So I didn't really have the freedom that I had previously, where I could just say, hey, look, I'm going out with Ring of Honor for 3 days. I'll be back, on Tuesday. I had an office full of people that depended on me. So I didn't have a lot of the freedom that I did. And, recently getting married, I wanted to make sure that I could take care of my family and, do all that stuff. So I lived in Louisville, so just staying up with the OVW schedule wasn't hard. TV was in Louisville, it was 10 minutes from my house. The house shows were, generally no more than an hour away. So it was a very, very easy schedule. But once I transitioned out of there and moved to Florida, I had a brief setback. I had some injuries I had to work through. It kind of slowed me down for about 8 months. But once I worked through all that and got out to Florida, it's been full steam ahead, man. And the last year of my career has just been the best year so far. I did a tour of England recently with WAW. That's the Knight family. One of the longest running promotions there, Page's family. I did their TV show and their pay-per-view that was headlined by Alberto Del Rio. I've worked on Impact Wrestling this year. Had an appearance on the Pop TV show and several on Impact Explosion. Recently, I've gotten an opportunity with NXT as well. I appeared on their programming, and I'm one of the few people right now in the world that kind of has that luxury, because I'm a free agent, so I can I'm one of those people that can go between these shows and, work with these great talents and pick things up from, all the great minds there and, get that international television exposure. So it's a really great position for me to be in because I kind of can choose, what I do with my career. Right now I'm getting set. I'm doing my first really long-term UK tour. I'll be working with All-Star Wrestling. Starting in mid-July, I'll be there through the end of August and come back to the States for, some bigger appearances and television appearances and whatnot that I can't really get into too much detail. But if you follow my social media, you'll see all that as it unfolds. And, then I'll be going back again to Europe, I believe, in October for another tour. Working on some tour dates as well and overseas in Puerto Rico, Mexico. So just so much I'm working on now, but just kind of the product that I've been putting out lately and, my hustle and my discipline and just giving back to my wrestling community, helping as many guys as I can along the way. I've just opened up so many doors in the last year. And sometimes, man, and this is kind of a lesson to anyone listening, sometimes things don't happen as quickly as you want them to. I remember thinking by 23, I'd be rich and famous and living on a mountain on the hill. That's not how it works. It took me 15 years of hustling, going through extreme highs, going through extreme lows, missing things, losing relationships, and just all kinds of stuff. It's a lot that goes into that to where now, I can have some of these opportunities. It was not an overnight thing. I'm by no means, an overnight success. I've had a lot of cool opportunities, but, I always describe what I do as a success story in the making. Every day it's hustling. I'm getting myself more places. I'm, networking. I'm promoting my brand. I'm working with a lot of young talent now with my workshops, and I've recently launched online coaching services as well. So I'm just trying to stay busy, every aspect of the day, whether or not I'm working on my, my own work and bettering myself or trying to help, somebody else further themselves along. I've recently written a motivation book as well that I'm going to be releasing here this summer. So yeah, man, it's just so much hustling right now. And it's the busiest I've ever been, both in and out of the ring. But, I'm also super happy, man. Everything I do revolves around my family and wrestling and doing the things that I enjoy. So, when your life consists of those things, you don't really have much time to be anything but happy.
Exactly. And, all the hustle that you're doing, you know what? You're having fun with it. Keep doing it, man, and do more of it. And I wish you nothing but success on your, on your road, on your journey to get to the top. And I know with you spoke of NXT and Impact. Did you have any good matches there for the promotions, or were they just like tryout things, or what exactly was it like?
I had quite a few good matches with Impact. The ones that stand out the most, I had a really fun match with Andrew Everett, recorded for Impact Wrestling Explosion. And you can see those shows. I don't believe that match is aired yet, but you can see those online as well as overseas markets. I'm not sure where in the States carries Explosion. I know it's available in the UK markets, the European markets, and in India. But I had a really fun match with Andrew Everett that got a lot of rave reviews from the company, and I was definitely proud of that one. On my last match I had there, I had a really good match as well with Marche Rocket, who's a really good up-and-coming talent, tons of charisma, and just a super good dude. Definitely want to take a moment to put him over. He works really, really hard for his community. I believe outside of wrestling, he works with, I want to say he does something with, the welfare of disabled people. He does something where he really works for his community, and just a really good guy. gives back to the community, and he's a super humble guy, nice guy, busts his ass in the ring. So definitely anybody that's not familiar with this guy, he's a great dude and a really good up and coming talent. So check him out. But yeah, those matches were really fun. I had a match at the recent set of NXT tapings. That was really awesome experience, just working on that stage, and did very well for myself, and I'm in the process of opening up more doors for myself. And that's how you do anything, man, in wrestling or anywhere else. You show up, you put in the work, you have a great attitude, you conduct yourself as a professional, and people want to work with you. It's not like people reach out to me all the time. One of the reasons why I started my workshops and why I started doing the online coaching is people reach out to me on a daily basis, whether it's just for motivation or just advice to say, hey, how do I get to these places? How do I progress? How do I get better as a wrestler? And it's just all about putting in that work and having a positive attitude. If you're constantly improving, you believe in your abilities, you're putting out good energy, you're not hating on people, you're putting out a positive message, things are going to fall into place. It's the people that complain about everyone else and complain about why life's so bad, why they never get opportunities. They're the people that kind of find themselves stuck in the same position. And that goes for any profession or any walk of life. We all see our friends or people we may know, maybe on social media or something, that you see are constantly complaining about their position in life. You don't get anywhere that way. You'll never progress in life by complaining or blaming others. You have to make that decision to act. So anyone that's listening that has something it is that they want to pursue, or they want to change their life, just go out and do it. Trust me. Once you start moving, you put your plans into action, things start falling into place. You can think about something all day, but if you don't actually act to put those steps in motion, you're really never going to get anywhere. So I've been fortunate through my hard work and my personality and dedication to my craft. I'm opening up a lot of doors, and right now I'm traveling around the world doing I think wrestling is the greatest job in the world, at least to me. I really couldn't imagine being as happy doing any other job. So I'm super grateful for every day. I have a great family. My wife is awesome. She's a wrestler as well. Of course, I had to marry a wrestler, Lucy from the Twins. She's a fantastic wrestler. She spent 5 days on the road with me last week. Really cool, just traveling with my wife. She helped me with my workshops and seminars. So yeah, man, life is good.
I'm very happy to hear that. Just you're living your dream. You got a great family. You open up your workshops. You got online coaching, and all kinds of things that you do. It's great. You offer a lot of great stuff, for a lot of people, and I hope people, will take advantage of that. And like you said, the piece of advice that you just gave, I hope people will take that and really listen to it, because if you want to do something in life, you got to really act on it. And that was one of my reasons, for doing my podcast and, to keep doing it and everything. And it's a great thing. And I want to ask you real quick, as far as NXT goes, how was it? How was it in NXT? Did you get to go through the Performance Center and have a match over there and stuff too?
I was at Full Sail, so I was part of the last set of TV tapings, and it was just a great experience, man. Getting to work with the crew there, just kind of see how the machine works up close and personal. I can't, with these kind of things, I always say when I'm doing these interviews and stuff, I can't really get into much detail, but you'll know when it happens. And I just always say, don't be surprised when you see Christian Silvio popping up on major professional wrestling programs all around the world.
Hey, I'll be rooting for you, man.
Thanks, man. Me too.
Definitely. I think you're on the verge of breaking through that glass ceiling. I mean, you're really putting pedal to the metal. You're hustling a lot, and not only with wrestling and your workshops and everything that you started. Let's talk a little bit about podcasting, your podcast, because I just was so intrigued, and just wanted to do something to get me closer to the pro wrestling business. And I thought of, why not? Why don't I try a podcast? And I gave it a shot. I've been running with it. I love it. Long story short, I've been doing my show on YouTube. I started on YouTube back in 2014, right before WrestleMania 30. And then just last year, in May of 2016, I thought to myself, why don't I try a podcast? Why don't I try to expand a little bit, to get something on iTunes? And I got my own website even, so old podcast episodes I could put up on my website and have people listen to that,
Right.
So, I mean, it's a great thing. And I know you mentioned that you have a podcast, and I'd love to hear about your podcast and how long you've been doing it and how you like the podcasting game so far.
Yeah, man, I think I started in about 2013, and at the time I was rehabbing an injury, so I needed a creative outlet. I really couldn't get in the ring often, and I needed to be doing something, and I enjoy promos. I enjoy talking about wrestling. It's arguably my favorite thing in the world to talk about. So I started doing a show with one of my best friends growing up, Ben Kirk. We were able to line up some really big guests and just talk to a lot of people. It originally just started as kind of like a comedy show. I mean, yeah, it was wrestling based. We're talking about wrestling, but I had rock stars on the show and comedians and stuff like that. And a lot of times we just hang out drinking beer and talking a bunch of crap and telling jokes and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun. Recently, I've gotten a little bit more topical with the content on my shows. Because I am trying to, help so much and, be a leader, be a positive role model to, not only kids, but, guys coming up in wrestling or even some of my peers. It's really important to me at this point that I set a good example, which is funny because, when you grow up, you kind of learn a lot of things your parents told you were true. I never used to worry about that kind of thing. I used to always say, I'm just doing my life. I don't contend to be a role model or anything like that. But you get to a point where you realize that people are looking at you, whether they're looking up to you or not, kind of depends on your actions. But I don't want to put anything but good energy out into the world. So I've definitely toned down my podcast a lot and some of the content I put out. I still like joking around, having a good time. Life is awesome. But I want to be a little bit more productive, and if I'm putting my time and energy in something, I want it to be beneficial. There's nothing wrong with making people feel good through laughing. Comedians do that all the time. I love comedy. I love stand-up. But my focus right now is just on being a leader to my wrestling community, the community in general. Like with my coaching services as well. I'm not just open to wrestlers. Anybody that needs guidance, that needs coaching, whether that be just with their goals and their lifestyle, or whether they need fitness coaching or pro wrestling coaching, whatever it is. I want to be that person that's there to motivate people. Like if you look on my social media, it'll say wrestler, artist, motivator, and that's really something that I've embraced and realized that it's kind of something natural I've had in me. I do have that ability to fire people up, to motivate them and get them on the right track. So a lot of my podcast content recently has kind of been very instructional, telling people, how different strategies, how they can get to A to Z. And I've had a lot of independent wrestlers that kind of share their stories and things that they're doing. I just want it to be helpful to anyone that's listening, whether it be a fan that wants to learn about the business or someone in wrestling that wants to learn how to do things a little bit differently. So that's kind of the content of the shows I've been doing now. But when I'm a guest on a lot of podcasts, like this one, so it just depends on what the show is, man. If you want to keep it straight talking about wrestling, I can do that. If you want to talk about what our favorite beer is, or you want to share fart jokes, I'm all cool with that too.
Awesome, man. It sounds like you got a great thing going over there.
For sure, my brother.
I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check it out on iTunes.
Yeah, just look up the Chris Silvio show on iTunes and Google Play. I've got a bunch of episodes with some really cool guests: Cornette, Cliff Compton, Rip Rogers, Bob Evans, slew of wrestlers. Really, really fun stuff.
I'm definitely going to check it out because it sounds like you got a real good thing going. And, especially how you like to spread positive messages and leave positivity out there. That's a great thing because it sounds like we know that, whenever we go on your podcast, that once the podcast would be done with, we'd be feeling good, whether we'd just be happy and laughing or, just even feeling better about our day or better about ourselves. And it sounds like that's what you bring to the table.
That's what it's all about. You bring people up with you.
Exactly. Well, Chris, now that we're nearing the end of this interview, I want to have a little bit of fun with our last couple of questions here.
Yeah.
Now, this is a two-part question, so hear me out with this one. It might be a little bit long, but it's a two-part question. First part is, if you had to face any wrestler that ever existed, I'm talking, living or dead, active, inactive, any wrestler ever, if you could face one of them in a dream match, who would you want to share the ring with? And the second part to that question is, if you could face any wrestler in the world today for any organization that is an active performer, who would you like to face?
I guess in history, I ticked off one of my dream matches against Sabu recently. That was a lot of fun. I always wanted to have a match with him. He was somebody I looked up to immensely as somebody breaking into the business. All time, I'd say maybe Randy Savage in his prime or Terry Funk, pretty much at any time, 50, 55 and below. Current day, man, there's so many good guys out there. Just throw a couple out there. Maybe number one, John Cena. Number two, Shinsuke Nakamura.
Wow, Shinsuke Nakamura and Chris Silvio.
Awesome match right there, man.
And John Cena, of course. That'd be a great one with you and Cena as well. I think,
despite many people's beliefs, it's pretty hard to have a bad match with John Cena. So think about that.
Exactly. Look at what a lot of these talents, they came up from the indies from back in the day. Look at what they've done, like CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles. They all have had great matches with John Cena.
Yep. Something to that. Some of you people that may say Cena sucks, that's right. He doesn't really suck.
No,
but hey, boom. That's what you like to do, go for it.
Exactly. You know what? Hey, if that's someone's opinion, if that's what they like, then hey, I guess that's how they roll. But I'm with you, Chris. Cena's he's a great performer. I love John Cena. I had the pleasure of meeting him backstage at WrestleMania 27 6 years ago, and one of the most stand-up dudes.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
And to see you go with him, I think that would be a great match. But I'm telling you, the way your style is, and Shinsuke, you and Shinsuke Nakamura, I think that would be phenomenal.
Oh yeah, well he and I are both artists too, so I think we could, we put something very, very special together.
Oh yeah, just get that, lay that canvas out and just paint your picture and tell your story.
Right, man.
That's all you got to do. And I wanted to ask you one thing. I know you've been to a lot of different promotions. You've been around the world. One promotion that I didn't hear you speak of is New Japan. Have you ever had the honor of working with New Japan ever, or is that something on your bucket list, so to speak, that you want to do in the business?
Well, thus far, no, I have not worked at New Japan. I certainly have aspirations of establishing myself in the Japanese market, and it may or may not be something I'm actively pursuing at the moment. So with that, again, I use the comment that, there's not too much detail I can go into, but when you see Chris Silvio appearing on a national television or international television show, don't be surprised.
There you go. You heard Chris, everybody. Let's keep on the lookout for him. And I have a feeling we're going to see him on our TV screens a lot coming up in the near future. And
I have the same feeling, buddy.
I can feel it. I can just feel it with that positive energy and the vibe that you're putting out there. I just got that feeling. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of you, my friend.
Yeah, I look forward to it, man.
And I would say in closing for a final question, well, actually, this might be two questions, but this is like my last part. One question would be, out of everything that you've done and everything you've accomplished over the years, what is your main goal that you have that you want to come out of all this hard work that you're doing? What is the end game that you want to succeed in the pro wrestling business, or has it already happened for you?
It's undoubtedly not already happened. I'm not the kind of person that settles. The end game of wrestling, I want to leave a lasting legacy. What that's going to entail, we're going to find out, as the story comes to a close. There are titles I want to hold. There are pay-per-views I want to do. There's merchandise I want to market. So there's a whole lot left to do. But I guess the most basic way I can put it is I want to leave a lasting legacy and have myself in a position where once my in-ring days are behind me, I can transition to continuing to work in the industry, whether that be as a world-renowned trainer, or somebody working behind the scenes in a producer or director capacity, or a booker or anything like that. So that's my end game ultimately. But as far as life goes, man, I just want to provide a good home for my family. I really love being by the beach. My wife is English, so I want a beach house and I want to maintain a home in England, and hopefully have a few kids, teach them some cool stuff, and just live the life, man. Enjoy my family and enjoy, being a part of just the coolest job in the world.
That just sounds like the American dream,
Yeah.
It really does. Like some people saying, buying a house is the American dream, or this could be the American dream, or that could be the American dream. But it sounds like your life and what you want out of life, it just sounds like the American dream.
Well, man, give me a beach, my family, and a wrestling ring, and I'm all right, man. I don't really need too much.
Yeah, just very simple, simple and hey, it's like they say, you know what? Simple things is what's best, and less is more, man.
Yeah, there you go, buddy.
And my final question for you here tonight is, what is in your future that you can speak of? I know, you said you can't go into too many extensive details, but for what you could tell us, if there's anything you can tell us, what does the future hold for Chris Silvio, throughout the rest of this year and going into 2018? What does the future hold, and what are some goals that you have set for yourself to get you through this year and going on to the next year?
Good things, man. I've really been focusing this year on establishing myself in as many markets as I can, and as many promotions as I can. But a huge focus for me has been establishing myself in the UK market, which at the moment is one of the more thriving markets in professional wrestling. So I'm going to be doing my first prolonged tour coming up in July through August with All Star Wrestling. That's one of the most prestigious promotions out there. They've been running for quite some time. If you read Daniel Bryan's book, he'll share some stories from his experiences there. Basically so many really, really good talents all around the world have come through there. So I've got 2 European tours lined up here for 2017. Like I said, I'm lining up some television appearances as well. I can't really get into as much details on those. As far as 2018, man, what I can say is it's going to all be about forward progress. In 2018, my goal is to land something, a bit more regular. So maybe I don't have to hustle as much. So hopefully in 2018, Chris Silvio finds a home somewhere. And hopefully that place has a very large viewing audience.
Hey, and I think it will. I really think it will. I just, like I said, I sense something on the horizon. It seems like something is coming our way, and we're gonna be seeing a lot of you on our television screens. And I gotta tell you, I'm excited to see what the future's gonna hold for you, Chris. I really am.
Thank you, buddy. The magic is in the air. Everybody that's listening, thank you so much for tuning in and keeping up with me. I try to be as sincere as possible in my content and my posts. And I really can't stress just how thankful I am for the fans and all the supporters of professional wrestling. When I meet you guys at the show and you pick up pictures or T-shirts, or even just come by to say you appreciate what we do. I want everybody to know that really does mean a lot to me, Chris, as the person, not the performer you see in the ring. So, I really appreciate all that. I try to be as real as possible with my content. I'd like to interact with as many people as possible. If you're not on my Facebook, find Chris Silvio on Facebook. I usually have several pieces of content updated daily. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at @BChrisSilvio. I try to keep that with as much fresh content as possible. I'm getting a little bit better. YouTube was one of the areas where I didn't have as much interest in establishing YouTube, but I know I need to connect with as many people as possible. So I promise you guys I'm getting better about posting matches and stuff to YouTube. I know I've been horrendous with that in the past, and my apologies, but I'm learning just like everyone else. So I'll be more active on YouTube. Just look up Chris Silvio on YouTube. I've got a few songs that I've written and played on there. But the main thing too to look forward to is I've got the motivational book coming out this summer, 50 Ways to Live the Life of Your Dreams, a guidebook to your personal journey. And I really hope that can help to change some people's lives and, just help them get through and live a little bit better day to day. So that's my goal. So connect with me on any of those platforms. And when it comes out, I appreciate if you bought my book. I think it'll really help you.
And you know what? With all the positive energy that you have just flowing from you, and I'm sure the viewers can feel it. I know I can feel it, and I'm sure they're gonna pick up your book and check it out. And really, listeners, I hope you guys really do that. Get Chris's book and support him, and make sure you check it out. I'm sure it's going to be a great read, and it's going to help you guys out a lot along the way. And I always say this, Chris, to everybody that comes on the show, that's a part of the show, because I know how hard it is, in the pro wrestling business, a lot of guys, they got to spend time away from their families, long nights on the road, a lot of sacrifices, time away from family. And I speak for myself and hopefully for all of the viewers listening when I say thank you for your contributions to the professional wrestling business. And I got to tell you, they definitely don't go unappreciated, because I'll tell you, I really appreciate what you do, and I'm sure all the fans appreciate what you do as well, because for the sake of our entertainment, to give us a good show and a good match to make sure we leave happy, that definitely deserves a big thank you.
Hey, no problem, man. Thank you to all you guys. Yeah, we're all in this thing together. So yeah, I look forward to connecting with you guys. Any of my social media platforms or on the shows that I'm doing, whatever it is. So thanks a lot for having me on, man. I hope people have enjoyed this segment with Superstar Silvio.
Hey, it's been an awesome time, and hey, I hope whatever you got going on in the future. It was a great interview. If you would like to come back, I would. I would love to have you back on the show in the future. Maybe at the end of the year, or near the beginning of next, just to see what you're doing. Because I like to try to keep in contact with everybody that comes on, and kind of have it be like a little family over here. And I'm sure the viewers, they get invested to the people that come on, and just to keep them up to date with everything. If you would like to, it'd be awesome to have you back.
Yeah, man. Nope, just you know where to find me. Just shoot me a message, and I'll be happy to chop it up with you for a little bit. But thanks again, my brother, and thanks for having me.
Sounds good, Chris. I'll talk to you sometime in the future, and thank you for coming on tonight.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.
You too.
That's it.
Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video and this podcast with Chris Silvio. Great interview there. And I wish Chris all the best, and just want to say thank you to him for coming on the podcast tonight. This has been episode number 63 of the Beyond the Ring with Big T Wrestling podcast. Another big thank you to Chris Silvio for coming on the show tonight. And, we'll see you back. I'm trying to think of my schedule coming up. We'll see you back next week for another podcast. And, hey, you never know who I'll have on the next one. I'll keep you guys updated on that. But again, make sure you leave your likes on the video, leave your comments, and subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes and Podomatic, make sure you subscribe, leave that 5-star rating. That's very important. And check out Chris Silvio, like he said, on all his social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Buy his new motivational book that's coming out this summer, all that good stuff. And we look forward to having Chris on the show again very soon. So another big thank you to Mr. Chris Silvio for coming on the podcast tonight. And everybody listening, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed this show. And I will talk to you very soon. Take care. I love you all. And good night, everybody.